almost a year into your government, and you are only now publishing your housing plan. Given the amount of time this has taken, we can be forgiven for expecting something bold and new. A plan, as you once said yourself, to once and for all tackle the housing crisis. But unfortunately, this is not the case. Anyone who will take the time to read the plan will know the Emperor has no clothes. In fact, this is not a new housing plan at all. It is nothing more than a reheating and repackaging of the failed housing plan of your last government. Today should have been a moment of hope for all those in need of affordable housing. Instead, it is another punch in the gut for all those without a home of their own. Once again, you are underestimating overall housing need, and as a result, the housing deficit will continue to grow. There is no increased funding or targets for the delivery of social homes. The result will be even longer council waiting lists and ever more adults and children experiencing homelessness. There is no increased funding or targets for the delivery of genuinely affordable homes. Instead, you are brazenly trying to rebrand unaffordable private homes as somehow affordable. There is also no plan to fix your broken affordable housing schemes. This week we learnt that a so-called affordable apartment in O'Devany Gardens in Dublin will cost €500,000. So-called affordable rental homes in the same development are expected to cost €1,900 a month. And this on land once owned by the council and gifted for free to a developer by your government. Your failure on affordable housing will mean that the locked-out generation will continue to be locked out, forced to choose between their parents' box bedroom or emigration. And the only promise that you are keeping in this plan is your promise to attack renters. From March of next year, tens of thousands of renters will face even higher rip-off rents for the privilege of being forced to live in smaller and darker apartments. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil's housing policy was written by and written for big investors, big developers to benefit their private interest. The needs of ordinary people, workers and families have once again been ignored. And for 10 years, you have starved our councils of the resources and staff to deliver public housing on public land at scale, all the while showering investor funds, corporate landlords and big developers with subsidies and tax breaks like confetti. Today's plan doesn't move a single inch from that disastrous approach. Now, Tanaiste, despite what they're going to say on the radio and television, your backbenchers must be privately reeling. In fact, even your own Minister for Housing, James Browne, isn't hanging around to defend his own plan. Instead of debating with opposition spokespeople on television and radio this evening, he is fleeing the country to speak, would you believe it or not, at a housing conference in England. Taoiseach, it did not have to be this way. You could have taken on board the recommendations of your own Housing Commission. You could have adopted the many solutions promised by Sinn Féin and others. You could have included actual measurable targets year on year for all of your schemes, but why would you bother doing that when you know already that you are going to miss them? But instead, you have decided to do nothing different and nothing new. So, Taoiseach, given your decade of failure, why should anyone believe anything is going to change now?
Taoiseach, I do not want this plan to fail. I think, the future of our country, particularly for people my age, depends on it. And at last, this morning, we have a new housing plan. And I have never seen any government take so long to come up with so little. This time last year, you deliberately misled the electorate in terms of the housing targets. And during the election, you never publicised your plans to hike rents, change the rental rules and to shrink apartment sizes. This new plan tells us that you'll deliver 300,000 homes by 2030. You'll need a minor miracle to deliver 300,000 homes by 2030. You've abandoned targets for the private sector, and it's very clear that you've done this to shield yourself from accountability, because what you cannot count, you cannot measure. And the overall targets for this plan are wrong. They are too low and do not consider inbuilt demand due to the housing deficit. The previous target for over 40,000 homes this year was a fiction. So how is anyone expected to believe you will deliver 300,000 by 2030? The central bank projections are clear that only 36,000 homes will be delivered in 2026 and 40,000 in 2027. That leaves 200,000 homes to be built in the second half of this plan, and that is a doubling of current delivery, with no sense that the private sector can or will do it. And construction activity is falling month on month, and developers are on the go slow because they know they have you on the hook. The target of 12,000 social units is only a 20% increase on current targets, when what is needed is closer to 15,000, as we proposed in our manifesto and as the Housing Commission, which you continue to ignore, stated. And in the section on promoting affordable ownership, there are no new measures, bar prize bonds, to make ownership a reality for people my age. And in fact, you talk about new schemes when what you have done is mainly just a PR exercise of repackaging existing supports or renaming them. And your last plan for affordable homes never delivered on its targets. And your solution is to effectively put all the supports together and rename them. So there is nothing in this plan to say how you will build the tens of thousands of extra affordable homes we need, or how house prices will come down, which they need to. We're told the LDA will have an expanded role, but only £2.5 billion of additional funding is being provided, and there is no clarity around what specific powers it will have. What is needed, Tanaiste, is a massive ramping up of state capacity to directly build social and affordable homes. So I have three questions. Why have you abandoned your annual targets? What is your measure of success for this plan in year one? Will homelessness fall? And what new specific measures are on this plan to make home ownership affordable again? What do you say to any young person, people my age, as the Minister said, do they just have to hang in there for what, another 15, 20 years?
Taoiseach, Fine Gael have been in government for nearly 15 years. 15 years of promises, plans and press conferences with ministers donning hard hats. 15 years spent turning the housing crisis into a housing disaster. Under your watch, Taoiseach, house prices have almost doubled, skyrocketing rents have more than doubled, and the number of people who are homeless has increased by more than 400%. This morning, your fourth housing plan was launched. This time, you're told it will be different. How can it? The plan contains the same recipe for failure. There is no sign of the radical policy changes called for by the Housing Commission. Worse, no hope for the locked-out generation that anything will get any better. Taoiseach, the housing crisis is a daily struggle etched into the lives of tens of thousands of people. There's generations of families crammed into overcrowded houses. Entire families are living in box rooms. Toddlers are growing up in homeless accommodation without the physical space to learn how to crawl. And adults are stuck in their childhood bedrooms, putting their lives on hold year after year. The mental toll this is taking is immense. Stress, anxiety and hopelessness are becoming the norm for people who are stuck in this housing limbo. People's lives are being ruined. Taoiseach, in the run-up to the last election, you promised that 40,000 homes would be built last year. This has been exposed as a complete and utter fabrication. So what's the government's response? You've scrapped annual targets from your housing plan. All of a sudden you think these are a bad idea. Well, I've news for you, Taoiseach. The latest desperate attempt to disguise your terrible record in housing will not work. No sleight of hand can hide the mess that Fine Gael governments have made. The fact that annual targets have disappeared from this plan is damning. If you had any confidence in your plan, or indeed in your Housing Minister, that wouldn't have happened. In fact, the Housing Minister, who's delayed the launching of this plan for almost a year, isn't even hanging around to debate it this evening. He is running scared. Taoiseach, this plan could have been different, could have been radical. You could have announced plans to build a modular homes factory to turbocharge the delivery of affordable homes. You could have given the Land Development Agency the power it needs to assemble land banks and deliver homes quickly. You could have fast-tracked a vacant homes tax with teeth to get tens of thousands of vacant homes back into use. Instead, you've reverted to type, sweetheart deals for developers, tax breaks for investment funds, and a doubling down on failure. Taoiseach, given Fine Gael's track record on failure in housing, why should people believe that this plan will be any better than the ones that have come before it?
Taoiseach, this government is a record-breaking government for all the wrong reasons. Record rents, record house prices and record numbers of people who are homeless. The average residential property sold in 2025 is €426,000. I couldn't believe the figure when I saw it. 8 times the actual average income at the moment. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is now over £2,000 a month, and the availability of homes to rent has halved since pre-COVID times. 16,600 people are currently languishing homeless. 5,200 of those are children, and 402 people have died in homelessness in Dublin in 5 years, and for much of the rest of the country that figure is not even measured. The truth is, in terms of housing, your government is going into reverse. Only 30,000 homes were built last year. That was a decrease from the year before, well short of the target. Planning permissions are falling. Planning permissions for apartments have collapsed. Last year you said that you're going to build 12,930 social homes. You missed that target by 2,300. The key problems are not being tackled, and the key problems, I believe, are government bureaucracy and red tape, the lack of viability, the lack of key infrastructure and the lack of serviced zoned land. Now, one of the big shocks, I think, in this situation is, in the middle of a housing crisis, so many construction companies are idle. So many construction companies are currently putting their staff abroad because they cannot work here. They're saying that there's no proper pipeline of work coming through for them to work on, which is absolutely incredible. Now, the planning situation in this country is absolutely mental. It's completely crazy. I've heard of a 30,000-page planning permission needed for a particular project that needed vans to transport it. Another planning permission needed 4 separate versions of the same plan to suit 4 separate agencies. The Greater Dublin Drainage Project, a project to help service 100,000 homes, has been in planning for the last 10 years and is now in judicial review again and likely to be tied up for many other years. In Ireland, there's actually 26 judicial reviews per 1 million people. In Britain, it's 5 per 1 million people. Judicial reviews are becoming a national sport in this country. The issuing of permits and licensing in this country under your government is the slowest in Europe. The tendering process under your government is one of the slowest in Europe at the moment. And this hasn't evolved out of thin air. This has been created by your government. And the lack of infrastructure is hammering the building of homes. Éoin was in before the Infrastructure Committee there recently, and I asked them, how long is it going to take for you to fill the gaps that are currently a blockage in the building of homes? And they said proudly that they'll have it done by 2050. That's an incredible situation. Éoin can hardly keep the water in the taps in County Meath at the moment of the houses that are built, and yet thousands of homes are waiting to be built in my county at the moment. There's a lack of electricity, water, roads, and it's all your responsibility. And to be honest, I have a different view from the other opposition parties here. But in this particular plan that you have, it's a tweaker's charter. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, a grant here and a grant there. It does not have the ambition that's needed to fix this problem. When will you deliver the radical change that's needed